Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final game of the first best of 3 here at the Asus ROG DreamLeague Season 3. It's Hellraisers versus Asus.Polar, and me and Draskell are going to be taking through the game as always. And we're already into the draft, picks and bans are well underway, so let's get ourselves in. And Draskell, we're seeing pretty much what we come to expect from a fight with Asus.Polar and Hellraisers involved. We've got the Sniper banned out against G, Treant banned out against FNG, Shadow Fiend is picked up for G, Lena's picked up for Illidan Storm Rage, we can imagine, and you're seeing the Storm and the Night Stalker again, first pick from Hellraisers.
The Hellraisers do not want the game to go late with those first 2 picks. Now, Storm needs a little bit of time before he can really start kicking off. You want the Orchid, or some people prefer the Bloodstone, and then you can just start fighting, trying to accumulate either Bloodstone charges or just get your general map presence going. And against heroes like Shadow Fiend and Lena, Night Stalker and Storm can kind of snowball very, very hard. So I'm a little bit concerned right now for Asus is what their game plan is going to be. In the previous game, they had insanely strong lanes, and we talked at length about how that kind of put them in a position where it was very hard for them to lose after that, even though HR played really great in some of the team fights. So I'm hoping that Asus can get a similar laning phase going. I would actually assume from Hellraisers that this Storm would not be going mid against either matchup, Lena or Shadow Fiend, because I feel like it's too risky. The way that I think Storm should be played nowadays is just safe lane until you have your item, then gank. Leave your safe lane for supports who might be under-leveled, or maybe an off-laner who wants like an item or something like that. So we'll see.
I see Shaker banned out, a hero that's sometimes picked up in tandem with the Shadow Fiend, just someone that's going to be able to provide a little bit of counter gank and counter initiation in the mid lane if the Shadow Fiend is the target of the rotation. Spirit Breaker banned out, another hero that we've been seeing today, puts a pretty good juice indeed. And interestingly enough, third ban from the side of Asus.Polar. They get rid of the Omni Knight, and we did see in the first game, Dread on the Omni Knight made a lot of stuff happen with that Night Stalker in the offlane.
It was true. This is the kind of hero that at least CIS Dota really likes between these 2 teams. They've picked it in every single match so far. I think it's one of those things where if you can't get your hands on a Spirit Breaker, or if you maybe want another hero who I think transitions a little bit better into the ultra late, because Stalker in the Night's still an amazing passive to have, right? It's like a mini steroid for your hero, and you can get Aghanims and you can carry a gem around, and you can just be a general nuisance on the map with dewarding and just keep your team in the game by virtue of restricting the map control of your enemy, which can never be underestimated. So on the side of Asus, I think they're going to be going for their patented 2-1-2. As Hellraisers actually take the Lich away from Asus here in the 3rd match. I think we could be seeing a potential Dazzle Axe offlane.
Okay, and talking about, you were saying the Storm wouldn't necessarily want to be put in the mid lane against the Shadow Fiend and the Lena. Now with the Lich picked up, do you feel that Hellraisers might put the Storm mid and just send him there with the Lich to back him up?
It is possible. The nice thing about it is if you wanted to do it that way, the Lich only needs to go to the lane where he's necessary. Yeah. So if there's a dual lane versus mid, you send him to the middle lane, you win that lane flat out. Or you keep him in the safe lane and you restrict the experience away from the Axe and the Dazzle. Although I will say, you probably don't want to put him against the Axe Dazzle, because at level 1, he does nothing. He doesn't even have a nuke if he gets sacrificed. So he's just like a auto-attacking range creep kind of deal. But they're going to take the Morphling. So they're just like, you know what? That was a really good idea you guys had last game. Let's do it.
It was kind of, I think it was Asus.Polar in the last game who kind of borrowed a little bit from Hellraisers draft, and again, switching it around even more. So Hellraisers with the Morphling, it's going to be a very, very hard performance to match up, because Illidan on the Morphling had an absolute ball of a game into the game 2 of this series.
He had 5 kills, I think, at like 7 minutes into the game. And again, Hellraisers panicked. They're just like, oh my god, we have to kill somebody. Our lanes are so bad. So this game, I think they're going to be a little bit more in their comfort zone as far as, okay, we're not having a 6 CS queen at like 7 or 8 minutes into the game who went mid and then went like 2 and 10. I think it's going to be a lot easier for them to keep a calm mindset and make sure they get into the mid game doing quite well.
Now, obviously, in the second game, Asus.Polar, when they picked up the Morphling and the Lich, they put it in the mid lane. Do you think this is going to be the Morphling Lich mid lane again, or do you think it's better to put the Morphling in the safe and keep the Storm mid with the Lich?
I don't think there's any reason to put it anywhere other than mid, just because if they put the Shadow Fiend there, it owns the Shadow Fiend. If they put the Lena there, it owns the Lena. If they put the Axe and the Dazzle there, well, that means that your safe lane is going to be easy for the Storm. So I'm assuming if they put the Storm safe lane and then Lich, Morphling mid, their lanes are really strong automatically. So we'll see.
Okay, and the Scarif, the final ban from Asus.Polar, and they pick up the Ogre Magi. Now we saw in the second game, the Scarif Mage, at least until the Morphling got the Manta Style online, was a huge issue for the Morphling. So why do you think Asus have banned it out rather than picked it up as their final pick?
Well, they don't really have too many heroes who are great at frontlining right now on the side of Asus. And if you look at Hellraisers, Morphling can be very tanky. Night Stalker is already very tanky. You got your Frost Armor, and you're looking at another potential support coming out from Hellraisers, whereas Asus, they got an Axe, I guess. So the Ogre is one of those things that you can just run in with and throw out a couple of spells. Just absorbing damage can be very useful for a position 4 or 5, because any hero that has farm, you don't want to die first, obviously, because the longer they're alive, the more they do in a team fight. So, plus, having Bloodlust is great for two kind of semi-carry type heroes like Shadow Fiend and Lina. Shadow Fiend obviously more so of a carry, and it looks like we're going to be seeing a support Lina in this game, as Phobos is going to be playing on the Axe and Illidan is going to be playing on the Ogre.
It's not going to... I mean, Illidan, he doesn't support that often. Surely it's not going to be a core Ogre Magi, is it?
I've seen crazier things. I've seen crazier things.
I mean, I guess if you get the Ags, if you get the ding-ding-dings, on Hellraisers, fairly squishy heroes until the Morphling gets his items online.
Yeah,
Apart from the Night Stalker, but everyone else... Unless, sure, I mean, do you think they're going to swap? FNG and Illidan swap as soon as...
Yeah, I think they'll swap. That's what I think's going to happen, but it was kind of funny to see Illidan pick up the Ogre Magi. So
yeah.
I'm assuming we're not going to be seeing his most played heroes change to Ogre Magi anytime soon. So
it would be a little bit of a surprise.
It would be fun.
It would be very fun if he commits to it and stays on the Ogre. But I think he wants to win this game. I mean, it is the deciding match. Both teams have played very well in both of them. You could definitely go either way. I mean, looking at the drafts alone, who do you kind of favour going into this one? So kind of reading from what we've seen both teams pull out in the last two games.
I think HR's team is insanely balanced. They have good high ground defense, they have Batrider, they have Storm to catch. Morphling is great in the late game. He actually, I feel, matches up well against Shadow Fiend in general. And you can make replicates of the Axe too, who is another hero that can be kind of a nightmare to deal with, even in the sense of just having an illusion out and being annoying. You put Frost Armor on top of that, really great team composition. Aces have more of a bursty composition, so you stun lock somebody, you Laguna them, you call them, right? And they're dead. So I think Asus is going to rely a little bit more on the momentum, whereas HR, they're going to go for their static laning phase, they're going to do their dual lane with the Lich and probably the Morphling, and just say, we want to pull ahead early and just stay ahead, like the whole game. So I like that kind of style a little bit more than what Aces have.
Let's see what goes on. Have they swapped heroes? I think the Ogre has swapped now, hasn't he? Yeah, I was going to say. No, wait, it's still
Wait, he didn't swap yet.
Illidan?
He's actually going to support. All right.
Okay. Well, let's just, why not? We're going to see the versatility of Asus.Polar come into action as we get ourselves into the final game of this best of 3. Over on the side of the Radiant, we do have DK Phobos on the Axe heading down to the bottom lane. Looks like he's going to be matched up with Lil on the Dazzle. At the moment, heading to the top lane, Ogre Magi, Illidan Storm Rage. I'd imagine going to be backed up in a dual lane scenario with the Lina. Being played by FNG and G will be on that mid lane Shadow Fiend. Okay, interesting stuff. Draskell, what is going on the side of the Dire?
All right, so bottom lane, we got Dread here. He's going to be playing on that Night Stalker a little bit to the north. We're going to have Goddamn playing on the Storm Spirit. Their stand-in PSM replacing Ninja. He's going to be playing on a Lich Artes. He's going to be handling the Morphling, and of course that leaves Gorek going to be taking up the reins on the bat.
Okay, so it looks like at the moment, at least, they're going to run this solo safe lane Batrider. Still got 20 seconds to readjust the lanes if they don't want to keep it that way. But it is going to be interesting to see the little bit of kind of role switch around on the side of Asus and see how that does indeed work out for them. I mean, well, I don't know. I don't know what to say, Draskell. It's something that I'm not used to seeing Asus.Polar do. Maybe they have done it in the past, and maybe it's worked out. But I guess people playing to their strengths, and maybe Illidan, he's pretty lucky with the old RNG.
I mean, he's a great player, so I wouldn't put it past him to be able to play Ogre. Let's be honest here, Ogre doesn't have a tremendously high skill cap.
No.
It's all about how good you are with the multicast, so I think he will be farming in this lane.
Okay.
And the way that it's going down right now, Lich is kind of hovering around middle lane. I assume he'll be making his way back if the Storm is having any issues here. And that just means that it's going to be, top lane is going to be suffering for HR. So Gorek's not going to be getting a whole heck of a lot here. And then middle lane, you're probably going to have your Shadow Fiend not doing great if PSM decides to start helping. But right now, he's just kind of stacking the woods.
G at the moment, you know, level 2 against a level 2 Storm, having a great time getting the CS3. Make that potentially 4 if he gets to this one as well. God damn that. Well, there's your Razors coming through, securing the farm. So, G, as you said, looks to have the slight edge now, but we can almost certainly expect to see PSM come into the lane. On your bottom lane, this Axe safe lane with the Dazzle matchup, it's going to be interesting to see it run up against Artez on the Morphling and Dread on the Night Stalker in this dual lane offlane.
Morphling is one of those pseudo-ranged heroes. He's got 350 attack range. So more or less, if you're attacking, you're barely out of range of call. And that's if you're going for a CS on a creep that's on the other side of the wave. So if you're going for a CS, Phobos can almost always taunt you, which is kind of annoying because you want a ranged hero to be able to not have to worry about Helix. But I don't think this lane's going to go as well for HR because they decided to put the Morphling and the Night Stalker together. Now, if the Lich was down here with Artez, I would say, yeah, that lane's going to do really well. But that is not the case.
Indeed, Lich just focusing, as you were saying earlier on, continually stacking those camps in the jungle. Well, top lane, Lina gets herself a Banshee and there's a haste rune on the bottom which will be claimed by the Night Stalker. Maybe Night Stalker can look for some action here. He is level 2. I went the old point in the passive rather than bothering with the silence, but that might be all that's needed, that void nuke damage and slow to get G with the help of Goddamn. But Goddamn's fairly low, and FNG is actually rotated in to create some space for the Shadow Fiend. They do also have the Lich here now on the side of Hellraisers, and well, Dread goes in, gets the void onto the Lina, just throws one auto attack in, and then backs out with the haste rune. So, I mean, do you expect to see this Lina hang around here for a bit because the Lich, almost certainly for Hellraisers, will try and back the Storm up?
The Lich right now, he's focusing mainly on just denying creeps as they walk by.
Okay.
And then he goes into the jungle and he stacks. You have a Bat Rider on your team, so it's pretty apparent that if Gorek's having a bad time, you need an alternative method for him to get to his Blink Dagger. So the game plan is just recover and then deny a creep every single wave from the Shadow Fiend to ensure that no matter what, he's only getting 75% of his total farm. And even that considered, he's still even CS with the Storm, which just goes to show that G is a pretty phenomenal player.
Artez taking a bit of harassment here from Illidan on top lane. We've seen Artez come up to the top lane now that Batrider has left it to go to clear up these stacks in the jungle, which he'll be doing at this moment in time. A couple of rock golems, but he's already cleared. Has he cleared out the major stack there, or is that still sitting there? It's still sitting there. Isn't opting to try for it yet. Illidan needs to be very careful. There's 3 heroes on the side of Hellraisers here. He's a Noga Magi, fairly tanky, but I think this could very well be first blood. And oh, the stick charges, they tried to leave it for Artez, but PSM comes in with the final nuke just to ensure that Illidan doesn't get away. So first blood there, going for Hellraisers after they have a little bit of a lane switch up.
HR finally realized that leaving Artez in the off lane is not the play, so they just move him up top. He gets assist on the first blood, not too bad. The cool thing about Batrider is no matter how bad your start is, you can always just go to jungle and get farm. So you can be sent to the off lane after the fact and then just Firefly for the creep waves to stop your tier 1 from going down, which I assume is likely to happen if you're HR. So they get on the board. Their Storm is still doing okay in middle lane considering the circumstances, but eventually Shadow Fiend just becomes too hard to CS against. He's got 22 souls right now, and it becomes really difficult to try to get any farm at that point.
For DK, Phobos does need to be careful. The piercing damage from the Wild Wing Ripper. He's going to be all right, though. We'll be able to pick up those Tranquils and continue to get the regen back up indeed. And while on the top lane, putting a lot of effort into trying to catch out Illidan if he gets himself too deep into enemy territory. 3 heroes still revolving around this safe lane for the Dire. And Goretz is going to look to try and find a further stack on both of the camps. And I think he might be able to find a mid lane. Goddamn, going in onto Shadow Fiend with the burst damage. Nearly enough G, 1 punch away from death. But the backup from Lina is there. And G will bottle up. DK Phobos trying to do the old walk-in with Tranquils. Gank isn't going to be successful. Throws down a level 1 Battle Hunger, which will keep Storm back a little bit. There's still 1-0 on the map. We see Night Stalker closing in on the mid lane. There's going to be a TP reaction straight away from Dazzle, and it's going to be just in time. Lil, I imagine he has got the Shallow Grave available, and he has indeed. And G turns around that gank with the help of the Dazzle, finding a kill onto Night Stalker. And well, DK Phobos, he might find more here. Walks up to into range of Storm, who has no mana, finds the call. There is a little bit to zip away, but I think the Battle Hunger, no! He zips it out, avoids the damage, turns around, gets the shot of Phobos, but the raise from the low go round. Gee, what a player. Second kill for the Shadow Fiend there. What a raise.
That was sick. I was not expecting him to get that. He might end up going down here, though, Lil. He's got the Shadow Reef, so he will be more than fine. And Dread's going to get a not super useful regen, but still, I think he'll be happy with it. That was crazy, though. Like, the dive in of itself, I get why you would want to go for that, but as soon as he sees Lil, Dread's like, oh, yeah, okay, never mind. I'm not killing this guy at all. And this is a very high-level Dazzle at 6 minutes in. He's level 5, so Lil having another great game.
Dread wanders straight into the Radiant Jungle. There is a Axe here as well, sitting on it, 1,200 gold coming up to, and now after those engagements in the mid lane, after he gets a bit of that assist gold, well on his way to the Blink Dagger on top of the Tranquils. Mid lane, goddamn, is being backed up now by the Night Stalker. They might look to go in on G, and they will do, zipping straight in, pulling him back. Dread, he's already popped the Void. Will the punches be enough? And with goddamn, he's running out of mana, but he's able to zip once more, get the passive procced. That is going to be a dead Shadow Fiend in the mid lane. Dread, does he get out of this one? Lina can't quite chase him down. A little bit too speedy here at night time, but a very nice kill in the mid lane there for Hellraisers.
I think FNG had time to stun. I think he was imagining that he was going to back faster and just didn't throw out the stun. Obviously, if the Night Stalker is walking away, there's no way it hits, but the pathing that Dread took, he would have gotten hit by a Light Strike array had he used it. So a bit unfortunate that they're not able to get a return kill on the side of Asus, but all things considered, Asus are out farming right now. Like the three highest CSers are all on the side of Asus, whereas HR, their Storm, he has 29 creep kills. It's not that impressive.
Really, and especially a team that has got a Lich as well. I mean, albeit he didn't do the same thing as we saw the Lich in the last game do in terms of securing farm in the mid lane. But it's going to be interesting to see if that is going to be as effective, this method of stacking the jungle, which of course will get the Bat a fairly good timing on his blink. In fact, at the moment, how much are we seeing on this Bat Rider? He's got 1,100 gold on top of the brown boots, so he's still a little bit away from the blink, but he's on course to get it around the 10-minute mark, and double damage will be claimed by goddamn. Dread is around as well, but night time is over, back to the day, and with no points in the ultimate, the Night Stalker won't be able to look for any kind of action. Artez continuing to farm up here on the top lane, and at the same time, Asus, they kind of switched it around a little bit. Illidan, he goes down to the bottom lane to find a bit of farm in a much more safer situation.
I'm wondering what the play is here from Illidan. Does he just go Yules and just go for a chase kind of build where you can counter-initiate for your team, like Yule's the Bat Rider or something like that, and just stun the Night Stalker whenever they go for a dive? It seems pretty legit on paper, to be honest, against this kind of lineup where you know that HR are going to be going really hard with Night Stalker and Storm and Blink Bat. So building these kind of defensive utility items could be quite good for them. Or he could just... No, he wouldn't go mech. Ogre's mana pool is way too awful for that. So we'll see.
Yeah, Shadow Fiend actually closing in on mech for his team. And Axe, I believe he must have the Blink Dagger on the way. He's spent all his gold, and there we go. Smoked up, and they're going to find the first use of the Blink, and they could very well catch out Storm, and they will do indeed. Goddamn gets caught out by the Berserkers called Light Strike Array to follow it up. Lina finds the kill there onto Goddamn. Now 3-2. Hellraisers, in certain terms, it's looking good for them as well. Storm did manage to finish off the treads at least before he died, and Morphling now running the Midas, picked it up about the 8.5-minute mark. Now has already got the first juice out of it. So the Morphling Midas, a hero that arguably benefits a lot from levels because it's a very stat-orientated hero. Do you think we're going to see Hellraisers go for that style of gameplay where they do look for the fights with just 4 of the heroes and they try and make sure that Artez is constantly farming?
It is possible, but with the way the Asus are building their heroes, they're building to gear up for 5-men. So it's a little concerning that the Morphling decided to go for Midas solely because if G gets mech and then Illidan has a Yules, and they're taking these 5-on-5 engagements, and you have a Morphling with a Midas, that Morphling is going to do absolutely nothing in a team fight. So for now, Artez is kind of on the back line, right? He's just saying, okay, well, I'm going to farm up for a while. Godspeed, team. Please don't lose the game in the next, 15 minutes.
It certainly seems to be that way. Goretz, he is going to be a hero on the side of Hellraisers that is going to be able to offer quite a bit very, very shortly after he clears this stack, as it should indeed putting him well on his way to the completed Blink Dagger. Just about 10.5 minutes in. Mid lane, we have 2 heroes on both sides, Lich and Storm hanging around on the Dire, whereas you've got G and Little Summer Soul on the Dazzle. And there is your Blink. Blink now purchased by the Batrider. We'll see what he's able to do here. If he's able to catch out the Shadow Fiend in the mid lane, which is going to be very hard when the Dazzle is constantly there ready to support the Shadow Fiend if the side of Hellraisers go aggressive on him.
That's the other problem that you have. Dazzle is such a great hero to pick against these teams that want to just go for these aggressive plays. This is a really good smoke coming out from Asus.
Again, blinking and catching out the Storm Spirit. Weave is there as well to reduce the armor, but if anything, just puts them in a very strong position in case there was some kind of reaction coming from Hellraisers, which it did look like they were thinking about as Dread, Goretz, and PSM head into the lane, but they really can't fight without that Storm just as a three-man lineup here.
What I think is bound to happen is this Storm is dying repeatedly. This is a hero that is supposedly going to make space for this Morphling who has a Midas to continue his farm. If that doesn't happen, the Bat is supposed to make space, or the Night Stalker. But if one of the heroes who is supposed to be taking these 4-on-5 engagements is having a really bad start, that means that any kind of space creation that you're going to do is going to be worse. Because the Storm is sitting at 48 CS comparative to 84 of the Shadow Fiend. G has his mech, so all he needs to do is say, okay team, let's push towers. We got Blink Axe, we got our Dazzle with Weave, we have a 0-3-4 as well, so he's got almost max rank of Grave, so he can stand as far away as he wants, always is able to save people. And we got these tanky frontline heroes like Ogre and Axe, and then we have Alina as well, who is now level 6, so has his ultimate too. I don't really think HR are going to be able to contest much for a while. Like they need some items up.
It's going to be a very hard fight for Hellraisers to take. And continuously, you know, we're talking about the fact that Hellraisers, they've got this Morphling farming, but Asus, they've got this Ogre Magi farming. It was sitting on 2k gold just a moment ago. What is the more Ogre picked up now? He still says stockpiling his gold. I mean, I guess, is he just deciding on what the best progression is going to be this game, or what's the plan?
He could just be rushing Aghanims, or he could go Blink.
Oh.
There, yep, okay, he did buy Blink, pretty much as I said it, so that's going to be the choice. They just want to take fights really hard.
Okay, talking about Blinks, Blink into the middle lane, onto Goddamn. They find the cool Light Strike array, and it's a story that's all too familiar for the side of Hellraisers. There's your Blink initiation from the back, gets blown up straight away by the Laguna Blade. Chainfrost bouncing between the side of Asus, but Stormrage now with the Blink, ready to chase these guys down. Gets the Slant to Dread, lines up the Light Strike array perfectly. There's your double ding from the Fire Blast. Double kill picked up by G. 3 heroes off the game for Hellraisers, and Asus turning around what was Hellraisers' first smoke gank of the game.
It is so unfortunate that that Storm keeps getting caught the same exact way. That's the 3rd time in a row he's been called from invis or smoke, and he just explodes before his team can really do much of anything. Now, Artes is kind of saying, okay, my team is making space, but they're also giving kills away to Asus, and defending this tier 1 is going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah, looks like they'll just have to let it fall. They look for the deny. They won't find it. Phobos moving in, looking to try and find the Blink again onto Goddamn. But Goddamn, this time, learning from previous mistakes, keeps his distance well and truly. And Asus, where are they going to head now? What is the plan? They back up to their side. Do they have any kind of smokes for any kind of rotation to the top? Doesn't look like it. They're going to hang back and clear out this massive Ancient stack here, giving them all a hefty bit of gold and experience, which is still keeping the Shadow Fiend very well and truly on top of the net worth board, and still over 2k between himself and that Morphling on the side of the Dire.
This is really solid play coming out from Aces. This is the caliber of team that I expected to see coming into the first game. So this Shadow Fiend is going to have SNY if he chooses to go for it. Oh, hold on, Illidan here, getting caught.
Indeed, there is a TP coming in from the Dazzle. Can he get in time with the shallow grab? I think he might with the stick charges. Yes, he will. Will they be able to dive Illidan? Dread popping the ultimate. Should be able to dive this and find the kill anyway. They do, and now the Dazzle could be in trouble as well. Dread getting low, in fact, to the tower damage and will go down. Dazzle will fall. It's a 2-for-1 trade. Hellraisers, they'll be happy with that. Shutting down what's essentially the position 1 hero on Asus, and also getting the Dazzle as a bit of a bonus. About 1,300 gold swing and over 2k XP change there, and they'll probably be able to find the tier 1 here as well.
Even with the 2 kills, HR played that a bit sloppy. I don't think Dread needed to die there. He went a little bit too hard after seeing the Grave come out onto Illidan. Could have just easily backed. He had 3 other heroes in the vicinity who were at full HP, easily could have finished the job. But at the end of the day, they still get all those things you said, 2 kills, a tower, which is great, and we'll see if they can make anything else happen off the back of that.
From G in the mid lane, coming to help out Illidan as he blinks in. Laguna Blade, everything thrown down. He's trying to morph to strength Artez, but oh, the dunk was attempted. He replicates out, he TPs back to base, and he gets away. What a player, Draskell.
He just evaded the dunk. Or did he still get hit and it just didn't do enough damage? I couldn't actually tell.
I think he evaded
I guess.
it.
No, he got hit. He
okay.
did. It was
okay,
just a biff from Phobos. So he was converting strength the entire time, and it was 150 HP threshold, I think, at level 1. But no, he was level 11. So that was 250 health. Did not seem like it. But either way, going to be a bit of a bummer here from Asus. I don't think they're going to sweat it too much, though. G going for the Manta instead of the SNY. So adding a little bit more to the push potential that they have, just being able to mow down these tier 1s. They got the safe lane and the tier 1 in the middle lane pretty quickly, and also applying pressure to the tier 2s. So it's up to HR right now. Without it being nighttime, this Night Stalker is pretty much a creep. Like, he doesn't do anything. He has 0 Urn charges. The Morphling can't really do much either. He needs his Lincolns if that's going to be his item. And Asus realized this. They just say, okay, there's 2 cores on the side of HR that really contribute basically nothing, as Illidan's going to spot out Gorik as well.
Goretz in the jungle, taking the punches. Blinking from Phobos finds the Berserkers, cool, and he will indeed go down to the burn damage from the Ogre Magi. Mid lane, Hellraisers, they're looking for the push. A couple of TPs coming in. DK Phobos looking for the call, can't quite get in range. All the slows coming out to him, and they might be able to burst him down in response. Getting very, very low. Pops the call. The right clicks from Storm won't be enough because of the increased armor, and G is just cleaning up, dominating. 2 heroes down on Hellraisers. The axe will finally fall. Artez still very low on the bottom lane. We see Shadow Fiend making a beeline straight for the Morphling. The Morphling should be able to head to the side shop and pick up a TP here. 2.8k gold on the Morphling as well. With the Ultimate Orb, is he going to go straight for the Skadi rather than the Manta style this game, do you reckon?
You mean G?
G. Yeah, no, Artez on the Morphling.
Artez. I think he probably goes Lincolns.
Oh, Lincolns, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Manta's okay, but Manta can backfire against what Aces have. For example, if you Manta and get called, or something like that. And what do you really Manta style off against their heroes? That's the big thing. Like, are you removing a debuff that you need to get rid of, or are you just buying it for the confusion factor? So I think it'll probably be a Lincoln's. Yeah, he bought the Perseverance, so. Okay.
DG finds the tower on the bottom lane, 10-5. 18 minutes in. If we have a look at the overall net worth on the graph, what are we seeing in terms of difference? It's quite a bit. Coming up to the 7,500 point, 18 minutes in. XP as well, over the 5k point. Asus definitely showing their dominance this game. What are Hellraisers going to be looking to do in the next 10 minutes of this game?
This Storm needs to find a way to recover. Right now, he's working his way towards Orchid, and he's 2-5. To his credit, he still has 82 CS, 81 CS. So as soon as he gets up Orchid, he can maybe jump on this Dazzle and try to stop Graves from coming out, which has been a really big nuisance for heroes like Night Stalker who want to aggressively dive. Dread died bottom because of Shallow Grave, essentially. So if they can make an Orchid on the Storm and find some good engagements, they could turn it. But Asus are playing on another level this game. I feel like this is a much more clean strategy. They're making very few mistakes, and HR are just kind of suffering the consequences of that.
Certainly seems to be that. A lot of stuff coming out in the courier. Completed duels and completed 4 staffs as well for the team members of Asus. They go straight into the Roshan pit. Batrider on the high ground knows they're there, but the Radiant Wars come straight up onto the cliff. So Asus know exactly what Hellraisers are looking to do. They know that Goretz is there on the high ground, and also we can see that the Lich as well waiting up there is going to be able to de-ward them. It does have the Chain Frost available if they want to try and take this fight into the pit. Asus with the SF going to take down the Roshan fairly quickly. Can Hellraisers look for the plays here? They've got Goddamn on the Storm, zipping over to the closer portion. Tries to zip in and pick up the Aegis, but it's already been picked up by the Shadow Fiend. And on that note, they don't want to fight. Dread gets caught out by Illidan. G finding the kill. DK Phobos does get lassoed by Goretz, but Goretz, there's no follow-up really to bring down someone as tanky as this Axe. Now with the Aegis on their hands and the Night Stalker down, they could very well at this point look to push the high ground.
I wonder if at the beginning of this game, Artez opted to go for Midas because he didn't see any of G's items. So when he bought his mech, he kept all of his items in his stash, and then he sent out the entire mech at once. And by that point, he had already seen that the Morphling was going for Midas, as we're going to see a blink call here onto a replicate, but obviously it doesn't matter too much, as Aces can't really be stopped. There's a weave on this entire team. They got a ton of armor, they got max rank on the Shadow Wave, they got a mech. I really don't think HR can do anything.
We'll certainly see them give it their bestest as they do have the full 5-man back into the game. DK Phobos just leading, standing at the front, hammering down onto the mid lane racks. I think Hellraisers kind of flipping coins to see who's going to have to go in first. Illidan jumps straight in onto Goretz, get a double multicast onto the Batrider, gets orchided up. There comes the Chain Frost, but the Delta split is real. Only bounces a couple of times between the Dazzle and the Shadow Fiend, and the Shadow Wave will recover that damage immediately. Well, half the mid-racks down. It's almost certainly going to be the entirety of the mid-racks falling against the side of Hellraisers. Heals up onto the Storm. Can they find the follow-up? DK Phobos blinks in. The Berserker Skull a little bit too early. Doesn't catch the Storm. Storm is going to be able to survive through this. G getting pulled in. As Goddamn trying to kite them. Will be able to bring down the Axe. G getting fairly low as well. Gets the Requiem of Souls out to try and create himself some space. But G needs to be careful. Artez coming in with the nuke damage. G gets shallow graved up. Should be able to continue punching and will take down the mid lane of racks. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Hellraisers lose the racks. Can they find anything more whilst Asus look to retreat? In fact, well, Asus, they're not retreating. They're ready to fight. They blow up Goretz. Another kill for this Shadow Fiend, who is now unstoppable. 22 minutes in, 13-6 for Asus, and the mid-racks down on the side of the Dire.
So losing a rack at this stage, especially against a team experienced as Asus are going into the late game, you're going to be real sad, even if you manage to hold on for maybe another 10, 15, 20 minutes, just because you get less than half the income, more or less. The lane's always pushing in, you lose map control, and the middle lane is pretty much the hardest lane to siege. So I think getting that one down first is the ideal situation for Asus. They get their Aegis up on the Shadow Fiend. They just say, you know what? We're going for it. We've killed almost every other outer tier tower except for the off lane, which we can claim at almost any time. And then we just say, our Shadow Fiend now is going to have a Scotty the next team fight. He got 2 ultimate orbs from that push. He's got 1,600 gold in his inventory. The next time they fight, he's going to have 2,000 health. How in the heck are they supposed to kill G?
I really don't know, and I'm sure they'll be doing their best to look for an answer to that question. Asus now with 4 heroes ready to power down the top lane, maybe look to find that second set of racks. Hellraisers, they did smoke into the Radiant jungle, but there was no one there. And, well, the Dire vision isn't too great at this point. They've only got that ward out on the top rune spot, so they really do not have a clue what Asus are doing. They do notice that there are a fair few. Well, it's just G, in fact, revealing himself in lane as Illidan, DK Phobos, and FNG are smoked up, but surely they know that he's not alone. And the 4-star for blinking multicast onto the Batrider. Still though, G on the Shadow Fiend finds the kill for himself. Now the tier 3 in the top lane looking to be in a bit of a dire position. Lich, he is there ready for the defense. Buyback from the Batrider as well. They do have 4 heroes here. Storm Spirit still trying to counter push out the bottom lane. The Frost Armor going to be a little bit of an annoyance here for G, but he pounds down the tier 3. Nighttime is summoned and Storm zipping to the back of the fight. Who's he trying to look to catch out? Goretz goes in with the lasso, but the Batrider gets sent up into the air by the Yule straight away. 2 heroes down the side of Hellraisers. G doing so much damage. Chain Frost is bouncing between them, but they just don't care. Blinking from Illidan onto PSM, stunning him down. DK Phobos looks for the dunk, but FNG's already found the kill. GG is called by Dread. 24 minutes in. Asus, after 2 games, in the first one they show us they can't really deal with the early game aggression. Second game, they stick to what they know. They take it late. And third game, they really get into the zone and they prove 24-minute game, we can still win one of those.
Didn't need to go to 90 minutes. Could just win in 20. Why not, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess when the other team picks a Morphling, you kind of want that to happen, don't you? Get the game over and done with as soon as you can, especially when you're running position 1 Ogre Magi.
I wasn't expecting that. Honestly, I was thinking they were going to swap.
Yeah.
But worked out pretty well for them. They just left Illidan in the off lane. He got a decent amount of farm. He got some good levels. He wasn't really a huge factor. I would say mainly it was Phobos playing the Axe, you had G, and you had Lil. That was like the trifecta for me. They were making all the moves happen. They were smoking behind the Shadow Fiend. They killed that poor Storm like 3 times in a row. And then all of a sudden, where's your space creator? You know, Gorak was up against a dual lane at the start. Had to go to the jungle to start getting recovery farm to try to get his blink. And honestly, the early 5-man, after Asus.Polar saw that Midas, they're like, we're going to go. We're just going to go all in, buy a mech, have a Dazzle with max Shadow Wave. We have Weave on top of that. We 5-man. There's no way that HR can do enough damage to kill us. And that seemed to be the case.
Not at all. And Asus.Polar, there we go. Series over. They take it 2-1. We're going to be back for the second series of the game in a short moment of time, which will be Burden United versus Complexity. So make sure you stick around for that. But before that, we are going to go over to our panel in the rest of the studio. But first, a few commercials. And I've got a friend who is a tufted titmouse. We'll see you in a bit.